Hope your summer is going great. It sounds like you got a little bit of a chance to travel and kind of take a clean piano break, which I think is really good. Hopefully it's been helpful to start picking up a practice routine again and not feeling like you're kind of trudging through the drudgery. That's what I wanted. Of kind of the usual routine and getting weighed down by that. So everything you sent me looks really good. I don't know how you were feeling while you were recording, if you had the same kind of usual sense of anxiety or just working through those sections with mistakes, but you did a great job. And there really weren't that many slips. I actually was thinking that on the, which one was it on? Can't Help Falling in Love, the times where you would kind of have either a melody slip or something would go not exactly like you wanted it to go, that's actually really good practice with improvising, because you can hear, oh, that's not where I wanted it to land, but it can be kind of that stepping stone to get back on track. So it's really good practice for just dealing with, oh, nope, that wasn't what I wanted it to be, and figuring out in that moment, because you know it's easier to just keep going than to restart the recording, to just kind of try and work your way out of it. So I thought you did a great job with that. So I'm just going to go in order of everything that I have written out here. So the first thing is new theory assignment for next time. We did not have anything to do for this week. For next time, we have a lesson. We are going to start pages 40 and 41. So I'm going to kind of walk through them here for a second. So page 40 is starting a new section working with triads in the scale. So again, a triad is just another way to say that we're talking about a chord. We're building in patterns of thirds, so they look like the snowmen. And we're using the primary triads in each key, which means we're building off the first, fourth, and fifth notes of the scale. So they kind of give you that example based on a C scale at the top of the page. And remember, they're using Roman numerals, but the Roman numeral 1 just means we're building the chord off the first note of the scale, and so on. So what they're going to have you do on the first section is they give you several different keys to fill in a scale for. You're just going to complete the major scale for each of those keys using whole notes, and it's up to you. They don't give you any key signatures, so if you like, you can just draw in each key signature for each scale and then be done with it. Just fill in your whole notes and be on your way. If it's easier for you, or it makes more sense to actually write in each sharp or flat on each note and still not do a key signature, you can do it that way too. Doesn't matter to me, either way is fine, just whatever feels more natural to you and makes more sense as you're doing it. And then that continues on to page 41. The last example for that is B flat major. And then it starts the second section where you are no longer going to be drawing scales, you're just going to be drawing the chords. Oh, that's right. They also want you to fill in the triads on the scales. You actually don't need to do that. If you will just label the Roman numerals, you're going to fill in all the chords on this next section for all the same key signatures. So I don't need you to do it twice unless you really feel like it. So on the second section, they give you all the same keys. You're just going to fill in those wonderful root position snowman chords for the first, fourth, and fifth notes of the scale. Again, you will either need to fill in your key signatures or make sure you add each accidental, which would be the sharp or the flat, for all the notes that need them in each key. You're doing it in both treble and bass clef. Should be fairly straightforward. If you get mixed up, just feel free to let me know and I will clarify whatever is confusing. So that's page 40 and 41. And then for our next lesson, if you'll just send me pictures of that along with all of your video clips, that'll be perfect. All right. So the sight reading, congrats on finishing the book. I will actually ship the next book in that series just directly to you, so you can get started in that in the next couple of weeks. It does follow that progression in that series. It is a graded series, so the next book will kind of start in a similar place that you finished the last one, but there are going to be a lot more challenging excerpts as you work your way through this book. So this may end up being more of like a short study book, like they talk about in the beginning, instead of as much of a sight reading book. But what I do want is when you are able to get started in the new one, if you can still send me a clip, it doesn't have to be, you know, each time you do it, you record it, but send me a video of just whatever it looks like as you go through that process. So that way, if there's anything that I can contribute to be helpful with that, I have an idea of what that looks like, since I won't see you do it here. Let's see, Can't Help Falling in Love. So you did a great job combining your left hand strategies with the blocked and the broken triads, and great job on those 7 chords. I know that those dominant 7th chords were kind of confusing, but everything that you had filled in as far as what notes you needed was really, really good. The C sharp diminished 7th chord was kind of the tricky one. That may have sounded kind of funky to you. So with that one, we actually needed, I forget which note. It was one of the middle notes that was off a little bit. So for that, you would need a C sharp, an E natural, a G natural, and then a B flat. So that is your C sharp fully diminished 7th chord. That just means that we are building a bunch of minor thirds. So from C sharp to E is a minor third, from E to G is a minor third, and from G to B flat is a minor third. The interesting thing is that if we were to repeat the C sharp on top from, well, we would name it a little differently. We would call it A sharp to C sharp, but that would also be a minor third. There's actually only 3 ways you can create a fully diminished 7 chord, because the pattern just keeps repeating. So there's only 3 ways you can do it. So that's just kind of a weird chord, but that was the only one that I wanted to take another look at. The rest, you did a fantastic job. Okay, so I was going to ask you if you wanted to continue with working on a chord chart, but I do like that America the Beautiful arrangement that you found. I think that we'll keep working on that. If you want to continue doing the charts after that, just let me know. If you find something you want to use, we can do that. A chord chart is a chord chart, so as long as it's a song that you like, we're in good shape. And then if you have any kind of preference or style or anything like that, let me know, and I can always find a new chord chart for us as well after we finish America the Beautiful. But I'm curious to see what happens if we kind of make this an experiment on a theme and variations. So theme and variations is a style of piece where you basically have a main theme and then you hear a bunch of different variations on that main theme. And I think this could be an interesting opportunity because there's 4 stanzas and it's going to be all the same chords. Now that you have a little bit of familiarity with it, I'm going to make it a project. So you can do as much or as little of it as you want in the next 2 weeks. You do not have to get all 4 stanzas that I'm going to give you, up to the level that you would like them. If you want to just work on 1 or 2 at a time between lessons, that's totally okay. But here's what we're going to do, and I will include this in the email too, so you don't have to hunt through the video for it. But the first stanza, so the first time you go through it, we're basically setting up the main theme, right? So it's going to be essentially what you did in your recording, but we're going to stick with only blocked chords in the left hand. Okay, so your right hand will take the melody, and then your left hand will do only the blocked chords. Okay, second time through, you're going to keep the melody in the right hand, but play it 1 octave higher. Okay, so we get a little bit of interest there. And then you're going to switch to only broken chords in the left hand. Now, sometimes you have 1 chord for a good amount of time, even more than 1 full measure. If you want to just outline the chord the one time and then leave it there while your right hand continues the melody, that's totally fine. If you want to repeat it, you can do that too. It's flexible, whatever you feel fits the song best and that you do well. Third time through, we're going to take the melody into the left hand. So it'll be a little bit of a flip-flop there. Your left hand will play the melody and your right hand will play the blocked chords. And I was going to give this to you with inversions too, but I feel like it'll be a good stretch for us to just stick with the melody in the left hand. So you can keep your blocked chords in the right hand in root position. If you get to this point though, it might be interesting to go back to the first time through and see if you can start including some inversions for your left hand, because that will now be the simplest arrangement of what we're going to do and the one that you're most familiar with. And then the fourth time through, the last time, you're going to go back to the melody in the right hand. I'll only make you do it once. And then your left hand is going to play a root fifth root accompaniment pattern. So that will end up looking like this. And I'm just inventing this chord progression. I don't have it in front of me, but all you're going to do is, based on your chord symbol, if your chord symbol is C, you're going to start with the root, which would be C, and then you're going to play a fifth above that, so in this case G, and then the root again on top, back to C. And we're just going to continue this pattern, and actually let me pull up the chart. Oh, it'll be easier if I just do it here. Okay, so your first line, you would actually be starting on that C chord. So instead, you would have okay. So, and again, you can play it lower if you want. It doesn't have to be precisely in these octave ranges, but that's the whole pattern. You can stick with quarter notes and just make it root, fifth, root, fifth. Now in the third measure, you get to a G7 chord. So what we're going to do here is, instead of playing root, fifth, root, we're going to change that top note to the seventh note of the chord, so that way we still get the same effect there. So you, instead of playing G, D, G, like you did in measure 2, now you're going to play G, D, F, okay, and it'll give us that same tone quality. So when we get to that point, if I start on measure 2, we have the regular G measure, now the G7 measure, so I change to F there, and then back to C. So we'll incorporate that pattern. It's a very common accompaniment pattern. Shows up a lot of the time, and it's just a good one to practice getting in the habit of playing without having to overthink it very much. So that will be our fourth time through. And again, I will write all that out for you so you do not have to go hunting. Okay, so we'll try that out this week again, just depending on what you have space for and what you feel like working on. Do not feel like you need to sit at the piano for 1 hour each night just to get through all 4 of these variations. Pick one at a time, and you can even do a different one each night if you prefer that, or you can pick the same one and work on that for 4 nights and then take a break and then pick a new one and work on that for 4 nights. It doesn't really matter as long as we're doing something with this project. Okay, so have fun. All right, so let's see. A natural minor scale looks really good. We're going to move on to the harmonic minor scale. So the only change here between natural and harmonic is that we're going to take the 7th note of the scale and raise it by a half step. So for A minor, the 7th note of the scale is G. So all of this is the same. But when we get to G, we're gonna play G sharp this time. And it gives, oh, I'm running out of room. Same thing here. I'm gonna play G sharp instead of G natural. Coming down, it'll be all the same as what you had before, but G sharp instead of G natural. And you can hear it changes the quality quite a bit. We almost get kind of this Arabian Nights from Aladdin type of feel. And what that does is, in a cadence, we end up with more of that tension sound whenever we want to set up a cadence going from, for example, to finish a piece. We need that G sharp in there, otherwise we just end up with minor chord to minor chord, which is fine, but it doesn't really give you that sense of finality that we get when we throw in the G sharp. We need that leading tone, that half step difference between the G sharp and the A in order to make it feel final. So that is the only change. Your fingering is all the same. All the rest of your notes are the same. We'll switch to harmonic minor for this week. All right, next, let's see, we have Hannon. So number 15, we got it all hands together. It is looking really good. This can be a big struggle sometimes to go from hands alone to hands together because of how all the fingering comes together. But you've got a pretty consistent speed and you're moving through it at a good pace, which is really nice. So I'm gonna give you kind of an interesting challenge with this week, because I don't think we need to spend another 2 weeks just working on this one as is. Instead, we are going to try out a little transposition. So instead of playing this exercise in the key of C, we are going to transpose it to the key of G. You know the pattern, you know what your fingers need to do, you've got it hands together. Now we're going to play it going through the G scale instead of the C scale. So what this would look like, again, I'm going to kind of play it a little bit higher than normal so you can be a little closer to my hands. But instead of starting on my C here and using all the white keys, I'm going to start on G. And when I get to my F, the key of G does not have an F natural, it has an F sharp. So I'm going to play an F sharp. So what you'll notice is it's kind of you have to make an adjustment to where your hands sit on the piano, and you also have to remember that there's an F sharp. So that means you'll start looking more something like this. Here comes the F sharp. That's a little weird. So you'll still cover 2 octaves. You're still following the exact same pattern. We're just playing it in a different key, okay? So we'll give it a try. If you get kind of turned around by it, that's okay. Go back to playing it in the key of C just to work again on the coordination. Try it again a different day, or let me know and I can send you something to help whatever that speed bump is. But we'll see how it goes. Okay, Hannon in the key of G. So Keep Singing is coming together really nicely. You're doing a great job with all of those chords, and we have more than a few ledger lines to keep track of on this. So I think your approach is looking really good. The only thing I heard that didn't seem correct was on page 5. So on page 5, second line, first measure, okay, the very first thing that you play on the second line for your right hand is this chord here. And I think we might have had an A on the bottom of that chord instead of a G, which actually makes that whole measure sound like a minor chord instead of a major chord. So that, I think, was the only thing I heard as far as something that's not how it's written. But that's looking really good to me. So I would keep up the good work there. And then let's see. So My Heart Will Go On. You mentioned that you were kind of moving away from that. I'm totally fine with that. I think it would be probably a good idea to not have a piece that is quite so much of that higher level challenge, that would feel like we're just, again, kind of slogging through it. I think, especially just with timeline, we're going to start working on Christmas music here probably within a month from now. So I think that will end up being where we kind of divert our focus after the next lesson or two. And I don't want us to already be at capacity with something that's so demanding, and miss out on, being able to spend the right amount of time this year on Christmas stuff. So if you would like to have something else new right now, I actually think that a piece from this book could be a good fit. So you had mentioned that you did like the Beethoven sonatina in this book. And I think that with a lot of the stuff that we've been doing, that could actually, it's funny that Beethoven is the easier piece. I think that could actually be an easier route for us, not just in what it demands of you, but also that it fits with a lot of the type of thing that we've been working on. So it's a little unconventional, but I would actually say we should probably start with the second movement. So that starts on page 20. It's a romanza movement. Wow, good. It's the end of the day, sorry. And this has a lot of parallels. We've got a lot of that broken chord feeling like structure in the left hand. A lot of stuff that we've been doing with those chord charts, it's going to feel very similar here in what your left hand is doing. The melody is also really pretty. The first movement is great too. There's not much Beethoven that is not great, but it's going to feel a little bit more classical. You have a lot more kind of scale-oriented sections and things that are going to be technically challenging, but and they sound very complicated, but it's not going to feel kind of as melodious or in that romantic style as the second movement will. And I think we can definitely learn both. I just think for right now it might be a better fit to actually start with the second movement. So you're in the key of G on this. You are in 6/8 time. It's going to feel almost like a waltz. And yeah, I think that would be a kind of a good place to go next if you're up for it. So think about it and let me know if you are wanting to go in a different direction. I will think about what else we could do instead. But I think, was that the last thing? I believe so. So we've got theory. You'll get the sight reading book. We've got something to do with Hanon and technique. And then I'm good with moving on from the Can't Help Falling in Love chord chart. We'll just kind of work on America the Beautiful instead. So as far as songs go, I think let's keep My Heart Will Go On kind of on the back burner and maybe come back to it in the future. But we'll focus for the next couple weeks on Keep Singing and America the Beautiful. And then if you would like to start the Beethoven second movement, you can. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I will ship out that book to you in the next day or two, so that you should have it within the next, it's Amazon, so, very soon. And yeah, I think that's all. So happy practicing for the next couple of weeks, and say hi to Paula, and I will see you again in 2 Tuesdays.